This is Mallaig, the end of the line in the West Highland Railway. And the first time I came here when I was a boy, the fare was 9 shillings return. I travelled half fare at 4 and 6. That was a Sunday excursion train, left at 10 in the morning, came back at 11 o'clock at night, except that I wasn't coming back. It was a one-way trip, and if I had paid the full fare, I could have sold the return half for 4 and 6 to somebody who was travelling to Glasgow. Because this bit of the West Highlands, it's always been a very busy place for people coming or going. If you want to continue by road, the only way you can do it is to cross on the ferry to Armadale in the Isle of Skye. But the country that lies through there is still as roadless as in the days of Bonnie Prince Charlie, by Loch Morar and Loch Nevis. And that's the country for me, where the only way to travel is on your feet. I'm here because I'm following the footsteps of Bonnie Prince Charlie after Culloden, when Charlie was the fox and Cumberland's army was the pack. Pursued from the Hebrides, this is where he landed and took to the wild Loch Nevis hills. That's Mallaig, 600 feet below me, and behind it the Cocktail Isles, Egg and Drum. It's going to be great to get to this cairn and see over the other side as the country starts to open up. That's what I wanted to see. That's Loch Morar, the deepest loch in Scotland, over 1,000 feet deep, leading into real wild roadless country, very, very hard walking. The real key to the country is the loch that runs parallel to it. That's a freshwater loch. This is a sea loch. Loch Nevis. And it was a complication of this country that was the saving of Bonnie Prince Charlie. Well, remember, Prince Charlie had been in the Hebrides. Dressed up as a woman, Flora MacDonald's maid, he'd managed to escape from Skye. He walked across the Cuillins, and the chief of the Mackinnon took over with his son and 4 oarsmen. They rowed across the Sound of Sleat in the dark to land here at Mallaig Beck, just a wee bit round the coast from Mallaig. 4 o'clock in the morning they arrived, and the whole coast was just absolutely alive with troops. They couldn't have arrived at a worse time. They spent 3 nights without any cover, and the big disappointment to Charlie was that he was finding help very difficult to get, and the reason was such a campaign of terrorism had been waged that those who wanted to help Bonnie Prince Charlie were frightened to do so in case of reprisals against their people. But always, whenever Charlie was in difficulty, you could find loyal folk. But here he had some adventures that looked as if he was going to be caught. For example, they came round the edge of a headland one day, right into an encampment of redcoats with a boat drawn up on the shore. And the captain of the redcoats shouted, "Where have you come from?" And the chief of the Mackinnon shouted, "From Slate." And they rowed on, followed by the redcoats in the boat, but they rowed so fast they managed to give them the slip. Then the tired and desperate party took quite a risk. They landed in a wee island on Loch Nevis, just over there. And we'll see it a bit better if we go to the edge. Well, the real reason for taking the risk and landing in the island was so that some of the party could stay there while the chief of the Mackinnon went ashore to try to persuade Clanranald, who lived a mile up the coast, to help Charlie. But Clanranald was having none of it. He said the clan had suffered enough. So the only thing that Charlie could do was start heading up the coast, staying in various caves, including Prince Charlie's cave at Borrowdale, and then into a refuge high above Lochielt, and then finally watching the troops advance upon him as he lay on the top of the hill above Loch Shiel where the rising had started. There was only one way for him, and that was north, and it took him 2 weeks to cross these mountains, travelling at night, taking incredible risks. And then in the 3rd week in July, he found himself below a boulder, and I've often wondered if he was aware of the extraordinary coincidence of that event. Well, this is the boulder in Glen Shiel that Charlie's party reached at 3 o'clock in the morning, after crossing that high ridge over a pass called the Bellach du Lake. And they climbed up here, found the cave, and it's said that the whole party were faint with hunger. And for the first time we hear of Charlie being oppressed at heart. He was feeling low that day, And the extraordinary thing is that he had landed right at the very spot where his father's hopes to win a crown for himself had been dashed in 1719, because this was the site of the last Jacobite battle. And the peak is called Sgurna Spanchach, meaning the peak of the Spaniards, because Spaniards were used. Charlie's father had been arranging a force of Spaniards to make a simultaneous landing in England and Scotland. The force that came here was quite a small one, 300 Spaniards. But into England should have come 5,000 Spaniards, and the ship should have been carrying weapons to arm 30,000 potential Jacobites. Well, that armada was wrecked by storm, and the news reached Charlie's father's troops here. But they couldn't do anything about it, because by the time the news reached them, the English navy were sailing into Loch Alls to destroy Eilean Donan Castle.